It's QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Abalde. We are back on another edition of your favorite morning program. So wherever you are watching this program, we are saying Dalen si Jama for len muna setane program bi. Ñu ngi nuyu suñ fancy suñ and jama yi képp ko xamne you watch, follow, like, share and also tell people about QTV's flagship program. And I'm with Mr. Momodu Mboj.
Yeah.
Mr. Mboj, this is the first time we are catching up after Ramadan.
How long? That's it. I wonder, where have you been? Why is that? Because last week I did mainly with Ade, and we did with Mr. K. So I hosted a few times last week.
I watch you.
So where were you?
If I am not at work, I'm always at home watching QTV.
Okay, why?
In the morning, if you people are here talking, I'll be at home also
watching.
Watching. To
evaluating.
Legi so why someone no, Mr. Mboj, warulawa lulu. Why are you saying this? You know. So yo hamulo gauge bilum non rir. All this while, lumo nyuti.
Well, I'm the Lumadego about your back. About your back. When you look at this young man,
I'm back pain.
Can you imagine?
No, muscle cramps.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
So how are you feeling now? You feeling better?
I'm better. I'm bouncing. I'm good. So how are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, nice. Yes, it's good to be back and we share this platform again. And on the program, we'll take a look at the African code, the usual. And of course, we'll be talking to journalist Kek Sane of Kek News and as to the newspaper review. And also, we'll delve into Usainu Bojang's case. He was acquitted and discharged yesterday with the sister. So it will be important, a case that have been going on for 2 years, 9 months. It's important for us to delve into that and know the nitty-gritties of the case. And as to, the final judgment, to releasing Usainu and the sister, the harmful effect of chemicals on the environment. Lamin Jaite Registrar, Chemical Program NEA, would be on the program, and we will also brought in the discussion. Q Group Foundation, Setal Sunyureu, Suleiman Conte, would be here with our Gazama. So we will be discussing on these topics. And of course, if you're just tuning in, thank you very much. We'll take a look at the African code. A lizard missed by a stone doesn't waste time questioning the thrower's intention.
Yes.
yow ñu ngi fetelante ngay taxaw di ne yow ban façon bullet nga am ci sa biir gon
analyse affaire si
di laajte ban façon bullet am na nit yu mel noonu nag am na nit yu those are the slow moving people. They don't react quickly, but they take their time to analyze and try to understand what's happening. So does a lizard have that time?
Ci loo xam ne da nga war a act immediately. You see that matters. Loo xam ne yaa ngi war a act immediately.
Wow.
Otherwise threat bi nga face. Why instead of really doing that, yaa ngi ne lana xew fii lana xew fële. Especially in the context of work. Xam nga ñun we are deadline. Léegi xam nga yëpp chain la. Perhaps benn ci link bi li war a def defu ko. Xam nga ñu ngi yàkkamte move on. Instead of you move on, they're analyzing. Li faulty kan la. I'm like, come on, that comes later.
Or
deal with the action now.
Or defuma ko fa.
Go whatever. Just deal with the thing now.
Because at the end of the time, solution bi ak effectiveness bi mo gëna am solo. What are you doing? To make the difference. Sometimes amna situations you hamne, it requires you to act quickly, fast, because amna yo hamne tam life more than neka si line bi. So ko defut. For example, let's take a look at an ambulance driver. Okay? Patient bangi ñew, ñu ko wara yobbu ana ambulance driver bi mu ngi génna maybe mu ngi taxawalu si junction bi. Xam nga fekk ñu ngi wara roski maybe ki in the 30 minutes so agon si hospital bi dafa survive. Understand? So those are all the things that we have. Dafa am job yo xamne soxlut ngay question, soxlut ngay waste time, soxlut ngay taxaw di laajte su hitee rek da nga wara hit quickly. Yeah, so that's what I believe.
That's how it is. And even though here Munglani, a lizard missed by a stone. And I escape na threat me.
Wow.
Like stone be laluko. So what do you do then? Man, you better show a clean pair of heels.
Danga pondal. Danga pondal.
Absolutely. Instead of that town, wow, kisa luta mu jam.
Wow.
Mu definitely.
Man daf ma wara jam. Ki luta mu ma jam. Too much of nagging and complaining can cost you something.
Exactly.
Yes. So we have journalist Keksane in the studios with us. I mean, good morning, Keks. How have you been, my brother?
Thank
Thank
you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yes.
I'm
So how is everything? How is your family?
Alhamdulillah.
They are all good?
Yeah,
Nice. It's good to have you here, Keks. And thank you for always willing to come on the program and share the platform with us.
Thank you. It's a
You
pleasure.
know, we understand how busy you are,
Yes,
you know, especially giving us the updates coming from the courtroom.
Yes.
I mean, you know, it's amazing. Now we've gone to an extent where if Keks did not analyze it or Keks did not give us the courtroom news, we are not happy.
we wouldn't know what to think.
That's reliability.
He's thinking for us.
So you see, when you see Keks, the challenge that he took upon himself, it's a huge one. And I think people need to applaud him for that and thank him. When you tell most journalists, okay, court news reporting, they'll tell you it's complicated. You need to understand the terms, sometimes the language. If you miss it, you might even jeopardize, I mean, your work. Now we have Keks.
You'll probably be charged with contempt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Depends on how you
So
report.
most of the journalists that we have in the country, they prefer going to workshop, you know, eat some chicken. At the end of the time, they give you a pay and you come back. But Keks is doing it the hard way.
You mean workshop?
Workshop, exactly. Yeah. So Keks, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure.
So let's engage you on the African proverb. I mean, a lizard missed by a stone doesn't waste time questioning the thrower's intention.
What does that mean?
You know what Basa Kumburungo is?
Yeah,
During our younger days, we killed a lot of lizards.
And
You understand?
it definitely sends the signal that this one want to take off my life. So let me try hiding to save my own life. That might be my own interpretation about that. But it's a proverb that is telling you that once somebody shoots and miss, know that this person has an intention, so they run for your life and make sure that you are always at a safe zone.
Yeah. So the proverb is telling you, I mean, the reaction. You understand? At the end of we want to know what is going to be the reaction of the lizard. You understand? The individual. When situations happen, what is going to be the reaction at the end of the time? You understand? So those are the kind of things that we want to understand. The proverb is telling you, you have no time. I mean, in any situation. You cannot just, see danger and you start questioning in the mid of danger. You have to act quickly. You have to activate your 6 common sense quickly.
Absolutely. That's why, see what you do afterwards, that's why they call it post-mortem. After the act. So deal with the situation first. See, where you must act swiftly.
Absolutely.
Act. And then afterwards you can analyze, actually, how did we get there? How can we avoid this sort of thing next time?
Absolutely.
So just to prioritize.
Absolutely.
I think essentially this is a lesson on what to prioritize, how to prioritize, depending on the context, isn't it? Really?
Absolutely. Priority is very important.
Absolutely.
Whatever you do in your life, I mean, your daily activities, whatever you do, you need to prioritize something. You know, there are things that are more important than the other.
Absolutely.
What are you going to bring? What are you going to do? What are you going to leave behind? This one is important, but it can wait. You understand?
That's exactly it.
So that is what it is. Are you prioritizing things, Mr. Boch?
Well, I'm sure we do sometimes, and other times we don't. You know, with human beings, it's just very difficult to be 100% this or 100% that. Humans are rarely like that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of just get 80%. I don't know, get 70%, 80%, then maybe you'll be all right. I don't know. If you can get more, well done, bravo. I don't know.
At this point, we'll take a short break. And after the break, then we will delve into the newspapers. We'll be back.
Join your biggest network with the cheapest tariff in the Gambia and enjoy crystal clear calls and super fast internet at the cheapest tariff only with QCell. Rush now and grab your free QCell SIM card today from any of our care centers near you. QCell, the biggest network with the cheapest tariff. QCell Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
Q Money is changing the game.
Yeah, so we are back. This is QTV This Morning. I am Ibrahim Abalde. And for those watching from the diaspora, thank you for always tuning in. Brother Ibrahim Jawara, we are saying respect and a big blessings to you and your family in the United States of America. They follow this program a lot. I mean, when our YouTube channel was down, I mean, he contacted me and said, Balde, we haven't seen QTV for a while now.
Absolutely.
So it's telling you they are following, and you know, we have people that really follow this program. Yeah, so let's look at the Standard newspaper. Usainu Ami Bojang Freed. I mean, Keksana, this is a story that you've been following, and you know, we've seen you've also said a lot on social media in connection to this. They've been freed. I mean, because there was no case against them. I will definitely want to understand actually what really happened, because for us sometimes these court cases, they are very sensitive, so we are very careful on how to comment on them. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Like we all know, 2023 by September, there was this allegation or rumors or news that emerged from the public space that 3 police officers on duties were shot at Sukuta Jaban traffic light, leading to the death of 2, and 1 was left with a life-threatening injury. Since that comments, there are 2 people that were appointed to be the persons behind the shootings. One was Usoni Boja, and the other one is the sister who they alleged that was an assassination after the fact that he contributed to the escape of Useno when the facts were established that he was behind the murder shooting. So news emerged that the person was arrested in Casamance in Jululong and transported to the source of the Gambia. And after the police investigation, they deemed it necessary to take the matter to court, and they were arranged before the magistrate court, which lacked the jurisdiction to try capital offense. The punishment will be either death or life imprisonment. So they decided to transfer the matter to the High Court, that's the Special High Court in Banjul, and the Chief Justice, Jallo, then assigned Justice Ibrahim Jaite to hear the case and determine the outcome of the case. And the trial has gone 2 years, some months, almost close to 3 years. And yesterday, finally, the judgment was delivered by Justice Jaite by acquitting and discharging the 2 accused persons of the crime. Yeah.
In connection with the crime, what prompted the judge, I mean, to acquit and discharge these 2 individuals? Because this seems it's a serious crime. Absolutely. I mean, 2 police officers were just gone down, you know, just like that, and another one wounded. There were evidences that were brought to court, but at some point, some of them didn't match the individual. So, I mean, we do not have any case against Useno and the sister. How did we get there?
Some of the key points of the ruling.
Yes.
So what happens is, since the case comments state led by the Director of Public Prosecution, Yusuf, brought 13 witnesses before the court and tendered 33 exhibits which they rely on to secure conviction. Whilst the defense called on 12 witnesses and tendered 44 exhibits to defend the innocence of these accused people. So all the evidence that were tendered before the court and their final brief of argument to convince the court that this person must be convicted of this crime from the state's angle, and also the point from the defense counsel that there is no case that was established against these people and they should be free and go home. So these were the issues before the court for determination. When Justice Jade sat down and looked at all the testimonies and the evidence that were laid before him, and the final address of both parties in terms of the law and terms of other precedent cases that have been taking place, and cited other international and national laws for the court to either acquit or convict these people. After analyzing, he relies solely on 3 or 4 important things. One, he established in terms of what we call identical evidence, the identification of the accused person. And Justice Jaite, in his ruling, analyzed that the police has paraded 6 individuals after this murder was actually occurred. That these 6 people believed to be the eyewitness of the crime. And Usainu was brought before these 6 individuals paraded, but none of them were able to identify that this is the person that we saw in Sukuta Jaban traffic light in September 2020 at the shooting. The surviving victim, who is the only police officer that survived, also during her testimony in the court could not actually said he was asked whether he recognized Usainu as his shooter. He said he have never seen or recognized Usainu at that ground. He only saw the image of Usainu while she was admitted at the hospital. It was shown to him that this is the guy who shot you. And in his analysis, Justice Jade believed that a person who said that he have shown the guy shot 2 of his boys, and that means that there's no better person who can identify that person than the victim herself. Since in her testimony, she only recognized this person when the picture was shown to him, then that also created a doubt in terms of identifying the person. And police did not actually create or bring anything that will say that, yes, this is the person, to bring at least an evidence of identifying that, yes, this is the person. And the 3 police soldiers that also allege that they are the one who chased the victim, the accused person when he shot, all give a different, description of the shooter. Some said he's a short guy who wear a 3/4, others said he wear an halftan, the other one said somebody who has a ball legs. So you could see there's a descriptions in their description, so that now allowed what we call, there was no corroborated evidence. Among the 3 people that were chasing the guy just a meter away from them, they should have given you a correct actually description of the person, and their testimony should corroborate to say that, okay, so based on that...
So the identification card didn't work? Didn't work. Full of holes. Well, so what next?
Then it went into the alibi. What we call alibi is that you said, I am here, and somebody said, no, I was in my elsewhere. So now the state has to provide that, yes, Usainu was actually at Sukuta Jaban traffic light, which they actually fail to provide. Whilst the defense, 3 witnesses came before the court and testified that Usainu was with them at the Sukuta, at his hotel, at his working place in Brufut. And also the there's a white lady who came and testified and produced WhatsApp recordings of her conversation with Usainu Bojang at the time when the incident was happening, and shows the conversation that started almost from 8 o'clock up to 11 o'clock in the night. So that shows that in his analysis, Justice Jade used that a person cannot be in 2 places at the same time in court. That's what he said. And he said there are corroborated evidence that shows that Usainu was at his workplace at Brufut, and also what we call electronic evidence, that is the WhatsApp conversation that was print out, screenshot and everything put in a flash, tendered in the court, also so that Usainu was at his workplace. But there was no counter arguments from the angle of the state to say that, okay, Usainu was at Sukuta Jaban traffic light, and this is an evidence, a material evidence that shows that position him at the crime scene.
So his alibi stood up in court. They could not
pick him at the crime
discredit it or anything like that. So another angle, this is interesting. So all these different angles, quite obviously, it is the prosecution that proves the case.
Yes,
so, but they couldn't in every angle.
So also in terms of what we call what we call the ballistic expert who deal with the ballistic. There was no fingerprint to attach Usenu to the murder weapon.
The forensic vacuum, I think he called it, the forensic vacuum.
Was actually created in the whole case. That yes, it was established, the gun was presented by the prosecution that this is the gun that allegedly killed these 2 police officers. That was established fact. But now to link the accused person to the gun was where there was a gap. And according to the ballistic expert, why they could not actually have a fingerprint, the gun was exposed to the sun, and it have wiped away the fingerprint and also exposed to the rain. So you now establish that actually this is the murder weapon, but you cannot link the accused person to that one. So there was a gap that was left, and wherever there is a gap, because in a criminal trial, you must prove beyond reasonable doubts. So once there is doubt, it goes in favor of the defense. So since there is a gap in linking the accused person to the murder, that also failed from the angle of the police.
Finally, it was a rather controversial point, the CCTV footage.
Yeah.
I think there was talk of CCTV footage existing somewhere at some point. They'll tender it. Never tendered.
Yeah.
What happened there?
That was also raised during the trial, that Lamin J. Dabo, for the accused, the first accused, raised the issue that information emerged that there was a CTC footage that was actually stationed at that place. And allegations are there are people from the angle of the state who introduced him or herself that he's working under the state and produce a card that he retrieved the CCTV footage. But in the entire trial to the end of the closure of the case, it was never tendered, and that would have helped in terms of establishing and state the security apparatus. So if there is any CCTV footage, they will be in a better position to secure that, so that they will actually establish the facts of who is behind this heinous crime against our officers who are serving the country out of passion and love for the country. So this has been raised, but since it is the case of the prosecution, they are the ones who allege, and he who allege must prove. So they are the ones who should bring any evidence that will help them in terms of establishing the allegation of this crime. That was never tendered before the court, so that also leaves a vacuum to establish those truths. And also the confessional statement, according to the state, Usenu has confessed to the crime, but the prosecution could not have produced any recording, because if you go to the Anti-Terrorism Act, it says that once somebody is given a confessional statement of such crime, should be video recorded. And this is a legal requirement, and the state has failed in terms of that angle to record why Usenu was given that confession. So it's now left to your word and Usenu's word. And Usenu was denied that he ever confessed to this crime. So now it's left with the word of the state. But there is a law require you to record that thing, so that you will tender that in the court. And failure to do that, the court could not rely on any material evidence to say that the confession. So what the court will rely on is that if somebody comes before the box and take an oath, either by the Quran or the Bible, it's have more weight than just a cautionary statement or a voluntary statement, because now you have taken an oath before the court. So the weight that is put into somebody who testify on an oath and somebody who give a statement, the weight that when you take an oath, it takes, and the value that the court will put into that determination is more bigger than just a statement. So Usenu denied that, and also Lamin Cham, who has been a seasonal investigator, claimed that whilst they were coming from Senegal, extraditing Usenu to the source of the Gambia, he confessed that he did the killings. But when asked in court, when he was given as an investigator for 20-something years, one would have accepted such could have been recorded, but there was no record version of that confession from Usenu that also leave a doubt in the mind of the presiding judge. Likewise, Mama Jabe, who actually apprehended Usenu, claimed that she recorded Usenu their conversation, but when asked at the court, she said she lost, she changed her WhatsApp and he lost the recording, and these are material evidence that
a very sensitive matter like that. I mean,
so these were some of the things that happens, and since the law says that you should prove beyond reasonable doubt, and if you look at the evidence presented, it left a gap that was not filled, and the law is saying since it is not proved beyond reasonable doubt, then the accused person should be acquitted and discharged.
Kex, you've been covering court cases for a very long time. How do you describe the way the state presented its case and all these gaps. Have you seen anything like this before? When one is tempted to reach for such terms as incompetent, I do not know what to call it. One just doesn't understand. What do you make of it?
Yeah, just like what the judge did in his analysis, he said that they have presented incomplete investigation, unverified investigations, and whilst the state should have actually investigated when the alibi was raised, when the state could have used the people that claim that they were with Usainu to establish the truth, because once an alibi is raised, you now look at the alibi to establish that, but they were more of harassing and detaining the people that should have helped them to establish that alibi. So he said that their investigation was incomplete, unverified, and they were harassing and intimidating people that should have helped them to reach at a logical conclusion of this, so that they would have looked for the right person who happens to kill these people. So it's looked like, because once before a case will go to courts, there are procedures that they will take. That's why we have what we call legal opinion before a matter will put into the court. So once the police done their investigation and everything, they go to the Ministry of Justice for a legal advice. So because your whole objective of going to court is not just to go for court for its sake, but you go to court to seek your conviction. Since that's the objective, before you go to court, you must be convinced that the evidence that I have can secure conviction. So they will give you a legal advice. Here you can go to court because the evidence that we have. If that is the case, now we go to court and we all see these gaps that are, even a layman who didn't understand will know that actually there was no thorough investigation into this matter. It's put doubt, and this is Ministry of Justice, like there should be a trust between those who administer justice and its citizens, so that if my right is violated, I can rely on the courts, because there are other crimes that you know that the state will prosecute on your behalf. So if you are to rely on that institution to prosecute on your behalf on crime against the state by on an individual, then there must be a trust between the citizens and the state apparatus. And this case has left a vacuum, because still now the family of the victims still didn't know who actually killed their loved ones. And
absolutely, we will come to that. But here there are really two elements, isn't it? You've touched on that. The police will do the investigation, but ultimately, even you said Ministry of Justice, of course, but more specifically the Director of Public Prosecution. The DPP decides really what to take to court or not. And apparently I understand that they've got this, what they call evidentiary threshold. So one wonders why, after seeing all these gaps, maybe it's become obvious now with hindsight, but all these gaps, yet the DPP or whoever decided to take it to court. It's quite fascinating, isn't it? The investigation, the police, there are questions there, but again, with the AG's chambers and the DPP and their decisions to prosecute, they have their own set of questions, haven't they?
Absolutely. Like you said, and unfortunately, DPP was the one who was even prosecuting this case rather than OK. So that shows that the DPP was convinced that he will actually secure a conviction to this case. So after analyzing the evidence from the investigators, all the material evidence that were, because he tendered almost, like I said, 33 exhibits to support his case. That means that DPP believed that he will definitely secure conviction. But now looking at hindsight, now that the facts are established, so far what was there are only two elements that were established from the angle of the state in terms of this case. The rest, there is no proof to show that. One, what was established is that yes, death occurs. Yes. That was established by the testimony of the forensic, the post-mortem, the doctor, Ogu established that there was death occurred. And the death or through the shooting of the gun, because she shows where the gun enters and where it goes and the centimeter it's created in the body of the victims. That was an established fact from the angle of the prosecution. And it was also established that the gun that actually allegedly killed this person, this is the gun that was brought before the court. But apart from that, from the shoes that they even accused the shooter wear was tested in the court, could not fit his feet. So that leaves the question. If I have that evidence, and this is a person that was in my custody, detained, I will first test the shoes on that person before tendering it at the court, and then you'll be embarrassed that the suit cannot fit this person in before the whole public. You could see in Georgia Simpson's case, when the glove didn't fit, they said, you know, since it doesn't fit. So
acquit. If it doesn't fit, acquit, yes.
If you said that this is the suit that I wear on the day of the shooting, and the soldiers that case also described that this is the exactly suit, but you brought the suits and the accused person attempt to wear the suits could not actually fit, that leave a vacuum. And for me, I would have all the evidence that I would have tested them before actually going to the court. So there was a gap, or I don't know, for whatever reason, the DPP didn't actually look at all those evidence before reaching at the court.
One that you said there was a gun, so there was the gun,
Yes.
but was it established that that was the gun that killed him? Because you said there was a lack of ballistics and that sort of, was it established that that was the gun?
Yeah, according to the what we call the bullet case.
Yes.
You know, when you throw the blood, there are cases that are left behind.
Mm-hmm.
According to the analysis, looking at the size of the gun and the bullet case that went, and based on their analysis, that was the bullet came from that gun, and the cases were found on the ground or the alleged crime. So that shows you that there is a link of the gun and the shooter.
But
to link the accused person to the gun.
Who pulled the trigger? That is the question. We don't know.
Yeah, so, I mean, the family of the victims, were they at the courts? Do they attend sessions?
Yeah, we believe, we will believe that they are there, because normally you don't announce which party I am, but we will believe that, you know, knowing that this is the final decision of the court, and for them to get closer after several years of waiting to know who were behind or who is behind the killing of their loved ones. These are young constables that graduated from school and decided to serve the country, might be there. The court was full to its capacity, so you will not identify. What is visible is that the accused person's families were there, because after they were acquitted and discharged, you could see the celebration in the courtroom. So are associated with these people. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if Usainu is discharged and acquitted, then who killed the cops?
Yeah, that's
the main question.
Let's leave the question.
Yeah, so thank you, Kex, for reviewing this story with us.
Absolutely.
We've come to the end of this segment, and, you know, Kex, keep giving us stories.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there'll be appeals. And
The State House shown their intention that they will actually appeal against. They are dissatisfied with the judgment, and they saw their intention of appealing, and they sought for the accused person to be remanded pending their appeal, but which Defense Counsel Lamin J. Dabo objected, saying that actually these people from yesterday, there was no charge against them, because what they are charged, you know, they were acquitted and discharged, and there's what we call right to freedom of movement, and this is a constitutional right that cannot be deprived until somebody is charged of a crime that will make him to sit at one place, and where you will seize that fundamental right. Since there is no charge, they should be released, and the judge decided to release them on a bail or sum of $50,000 or one Gambian sortie. So we learned that today the family is going to fulfill those bail conditions, and they will be handed over to their family. But the state is given 30 days to file their appeal, and failure to do that, they will be free for totally without no charges against them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So viewers, we'll take a short break. After the break, the program continues. We'll be back. QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Balde. It's good to be back again after that break. Now let's move on to the harmful effects of chemicals on the environment, and we have Mr. Lamin Jaite, Registrar Chemical Program, National Environment Agency. Mr. Jaite, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
So this is a topic that is very significant, and we deem it necessary to discuss it on this platform. But first, we would like to understand what chemicals are, and, you know, what type of chemicals are we talking about here?
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. Like you said, I am the Registrar of Pesticides and Hazardous Chemicals from the National Environment Agency. So that's a very good question that you've just asked. Chemicals basically have a broad definition, but in short, they're mostly synthetic substances that are produced mainly applied in so many sectors, particularly in agriculture. The chemicals that we use in agriculture as pesticides are also considered as pesticides, are also considered as chemicals. They're important because they are one of the most common inputs in the Gambia. You have chemicals that are also used in research, for example, in laboratories. You have a huge amount of chemicals that are used in the construction sector. So chemicals are basically substances that are produced synthetically in the labs and used for a multiple range of applications. Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Yes. So, are they all harmful, or can you make a distinction between the harmful ones, the problems, and sort of on the others? Explain further.
So harmfulness of a chemical depends on is an inherent property. So not every chemical is harmful, but a huge amount of chemicals are harmful. For pesticides, generally, they are harmful because they are meant to kill in most cases. Yes.
That's it. So, so with something like that, pesticides, but we know that we need them in agriculture.
Yeah, sure.
So what do we do? You have these sort of contending pressures, as it were, imperatives. So what do you do?
So pesticides, if you look at generally, let me break it down. Pesticide generally is a huge, is a two-faceted word. The first part is pest, and then the second part is E-side. So the first part, pest, is anything that actually causes nuisance. So the last part, E-side, it means to kill. If you look at words like homicide, So there are different types of pesticides. There are insecticides, mainly for insects, that target insects. There are herbicides, to control weed. But in the Gambia, many people think that they don't consider herbicides as pesticides. So pesticides are actually meant not just to kill, but there are also pesticides that regulate growth. There are pesticides that actually repel. So depending on the toxicity of the pesticides, we'll classify the pesticides whether it's a class 1 or class 2 with regards to toxicity. So for example, chemicals like organochlorines, these are known pesticides that have been used for so many years. They're actually among the first pesticides that have been produced. They are known to be very, very toxic to humans also, and also even to the environment. And then in the Gambia here, we've used a significant amount of those chemicals. Among them is DDT that have been used for indoor residual spraying in the Gambia in the past. Not very old, around 2021 to 2012 to 2011, we have used these chemicals in the Gambia here. Yeah.
Okay, so now, in this country, our particular vulnerabilities, as it were, what are some of the chemicals that are having the most impact? What effect is it having? What can we do?
So pesticides are used significantly in the Gambia. So because at the National Environment Agency, in my program, we have a national registry. So 2025 alone, we have recorded import of over 600,000 kgs of chemicals. This includes both industrial chemicals and pesticides. But a huge amount of that goes to the farms. So if you look at the farms, the huge amount of chemicals that we use in the farm are mainly herbicides. During agricultural periods, rainy seasons, a huge amount of, because labor force has declined significantly. So farmers rely a lot on herbicides, to compensate for the decline in the labor force. So a lot of pesticide also is used in the gardens, and this is where most of the problems are, because this is where vulnerable, communities are. You have women gardeners that use a huge amount of pesticide, and most of these people, they have a very little knowledge of the impact that pesticides cause. For example, when you look at pesticides, contact exposure to pesticides comes in different forms. You can either inhale it during application, you can ingest it by eating. A lot of crops or finished goods that are sold in the market, you can see traces of pesticides in them. Because what happens is that most of these farmers, they apply pesticides and they don't observe the post-harvest intervals. They apply it when the vegetables are actually ready for the market. This is also one common sources of exposure. And exposure also happens a lot through contact process. This is mainly for people that do application. So with a lot of pesticides, particularly organochlorines, they accumulate in fatty tissue areas. This is bioaccumulation, and this is a problem. And then when you look at breastfeeding, women are also at a higher level of vulnerability, because when you look at the breast milk, a huge percentage of it is actually fat, and this is where most of these pesticides settles. And then a huge amount of these are also transferred to the breastfeeding kids, and also even at the fetal level. Pesticides are known to cause a significant neurological defects to kids, and this is where a lot of problems are coming. A significant studies has not been done in the Gambia on the effects of pesticides, but we have received a significant amount of poisoning cases that doctors do come across, and most of the time is either organophosphates, which are also very toxic to humans. For example, you are familiar with the sniper situation. There are a lot of exposures have happened in this country, and then some of them can be even fatal. But we have not actually put together statistical figures of the amount of exposures or amount of fatal incidences that have happened in this country. But we've come across some during our activities.
Yes, so that was going to be my other question, that theoretically these things could happen, you know, it could lead to B, but what are we seeing medically? What are you seeing in our clinics or hospitals? Are we seeing sort of diseases, illnesses directly related to these pesticides or any of these chemicals, as it were, in the environment that could have the harmful effects?
Yeah, that's a very good question. If you look at us analytically in the Gambia, we have not reached that level of being able to do some of the toxicological studies relating diseases to exposures to chemicals. But nonetheless, we have been in communication with a lot of doctors that come across exposures. But if you look at in the Gambia, there has been a steady increase in cancer cases in this country. And cancers are highly related to chemical exposures. Kidney failures are also been problems in this country, and then they can also be related highly to chemicals. Neurological defects, bad defects with kids, this is highly also attributed to chemical exposures. Because if you look at pollution alone in 2021, WHO is saying that death related to pollution, which is mainly chemicals and other materials in the environment, is about 2 million annually. And Gambia is no exception. So we have not been doing a lot of studies, but there is always a high chances, there is always probability that a lot of diseases, for example, cancers, kidney problems, that could be highly related to chemical exposures.
Yeah, Mr. Jaita, let's talk about the control mechanism of these chemicals. As an expert, what are the chemicals that are being controlled by the NEA?
So this is a huge amount of chemicals comes into the Gambia. So we classify chemicals based on their toxicity in most cases. For example, we have restricted chemicals and non-restricted chemicals. So non-restricted chemicals, for example, let's start with household pesticides that people use a lot to control mosquitoes and stuff. So these chemicals are mainly pyrethroids. The pyrethroids they don't stay long in the environment, and their concentrations are very low. For example, like 0.3%. This is a significantly low concentration. But if you look at pesticides that we use in the farms, for example, carbamates, organophosphates, these are highly toxic chemicals, and we consider them as restricted chemicals. Also, even in our construction, people use a lot of, you see, dustban and the like. These chlorpyrifos, these are highly restricted chemical, and the chemical is currently even listed as a persistent organic pollutant. So it's restricted in the Gambia. So what we have at the National Environment Agency, we have the National Environment Hazardous Chemicals and Pesticide Control Management Act. This is the act that puts down all the necessary requirements that you need to put in place before you can import. And this is where we're having problems. Our problems is that before you can import chemicals, first you have to acquire the necessary license at the National Environment Agency. You have to register these chemicals either at the National Environment Agency or a sub-regional body called SAILS. But the problem that we have is the location of the Gambia. So a lot of chemicals are transported into the country through our porous borders. And this is where the problems are. Although we have trained a lot of custom officers, I could say GRA have been very instrumental with the National Environment Agency. All the major point of entries, we have trained them. They are able to identify chemicals. When you're importing a chemical, they know the right questions to ask you, whether you can present the proper documentations. But the amount of chemicals that comes through the porous borders has been the problem for us. And this makes the control very, very difficult. Most of the time, chemical trade is done in the LUMOS. And if you look at the Gambia, the lumos are located along the border settlements. For example, Farafenye, you're looking at Brikama Ba. These are places where some people come through the country. They walk through the borders. Some come with donkey carts. They are not using the major routes, and it is becoming very, very difficult for NEA to control this chemical. But regardless, any chemical that comes through the right channels are being controlled. We make sure that premises licenses are given to people so that wherever you store a chemical, this place is actually suitable to store chemicals. And then we know the quantities that you're bringing in. And then we also make sure that when you have obsolete chemicals are reported to the National Environment Agency.
Yeah. Do you think we've got the right legislation to deal with this?
So Gambia legislation is not a problem, and I'm sure you know this thing, but enforcement is a problem. Yeah.
So you reckon we have?
Yes.
So, but this is the key now. With the monitoring, I think you've already suggested that you really do not have quite, the resources or whatever to really do a proper monitoring, as it were, all over the country. So what is it that you can do? Because then a lot of chemicals are coming in.
Yes.
That shouldn't.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with your shortcomings as an institution? You are the chemical program registrar.
Yes.
So how do you deal with your shortcomings to make sure that...
Yeah, so my approach is, because the Gambia, if you look at the entire perimeter of the Gambia, it's almost a border to another country. Even if I have 1,000 inspectors, they cannot cover the entire perimeter.
True.
So our approach now is to educate people. They said there won't be a market if there is no buyer. So what we do is that we target most of the locations where pesticides are traded, and also some of the gardens that a lot of women work. We sensitize them. They need to understand that, okay, you need chemicals, but chemicals have to be the last resort. There are also alternatives, for example, biopesticides, for example, biological controls that these people most of them don't even know. So we make sure that we train these people, sensitize them so that they understand the impacts of chemicals. And when you go to these trainings, you understand that these women, they even have more information on some of the effects that they are exposed to when they use these chemicals. And so far it has been working in some women gardens. Some women gardens have established a no pesticide use policy, that no one is allowed to use pesticides. So this is actually an approach, and then we also target in the younger communities, young people at school level, so that people are taught about chemicals. They know that these chemicals are impactful. And I'm sure that, but the problem in the Gambia is attitudinal change towards something that they get used to. You will go to a community or a trader, you will tell them that this is, the way you are exposing chemicals is harmful, and they will tell you that I've been doing this thing for years. Because once they don't see the immediate impact, they don't want to react.
That's it. Yeah. So, but this is the key. Self-awareness campaigns. That's one aspect. But again, you need to have some kind of enforcement regime.
Yes.
Isn't it? They complement each other.
Yeah.
Do you have any enforcement powers?
Yes.
NEA?
Yes. NEA has enforcement powers. For example, the environment inspectors, they have a huge amount of powers to some degree. They can enter any premises just by identifying themselves that they are NEA inspectors. So we have had a lot of cases of confiscations of pesticides. As I speak to you, I have about 3 stores that are completely full with confiscated pesticides or obsolete chemicals, because in one way or the other, they did not meet the requirements. For example, the labeling requirements, or sometimes they are not even labeled, or sometimes they are expired chemicals, or sometimes they are even banned chemicals. For example, atrazine, carbofuran, these are chemicals that we've come across. So we have, to some degree, a level of powers that we can actually control chemicals.
So what about the issue of the sniper?
Yeah.
Is it still is it still prevalent? Are we still seeing sniper around?
Sniper is still around, but it's a contraband. Let me put it like that. So we have even come across scenarios where when you want to buy a sniper, they will not display sniper in the shops. But when you want sniper, we've even had they can get sniper, but with a name code. Sometimes they can say, I want NEA. You know, our inspectors have used this approach to get some snipers from some people. But manufacturers have also quickly shifted, changing the labelings. So you can say a different labeling, but actually the same active ingredient, that is the the substance that does the killing, that's dichlorophos, is still present in it, Efforts have been made, but it's still available in country, I could say that,
Yeah.
What sort of change do you think it is required, on your side, to tackle this problem, for instance, Sniper just mentioned, to make you more effective in discharging your job?
Okay, so like I said, sensitization is important.
Yes.
So market surveillance is also another very important thing, and also analytical verification.
So you can't perform market surveillance
So we are doing market surveying,
but
we need a broader market survey, because I don't know whether you come across some of these hawkers that move around with pesticides.
Yeah.
They are a big problem to track them, because they are moving around with pesticides, and then once the inspectors intercept them and then confiscate all the chemicals that they have, it's just a matter of 2 days or 3 days they will go and replace. So this is also a problem that we're having. So my approach and thinking is that we need more sensitization. People need to know, because there are so many countries in the world that you cannot just walk into a store to buy a chemical. If you have infestation of bugs in your house, you need to speak to an authorized agent that is authorized and trained to do this spraying. This is happening in so many hotels. When they want to spray, they go to official. We have what we call private commercial applicators. They go to these professional institutions or persons. They acquire their services to come and spray. But this is not what is happening in the house and in the gardens, because you can just walk to a store and acquire a pesticide and then spray it by yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jaita.
Thank you very much.
For at least giving us an insight of as to what harmful chemicals are. I hope we would be able to control this, because these are things that are supposed to be controlled very well.
So
absolutely, and people, we should be more aware, because he's told us some of the shortcomings, some of the difficulties they face in enforcing these things. So for us to safeguard our own health, and the rest of it, we should be aware of what to buy and what not to buy.
So this is a global problem, because if you look at the global chemical outlook 2024 is telling you that one substance is produced per second globally. So, and there are over millions and millions of substances that have been produced. And as we speak, about 350,000 chemicals are sold in the markets without the necessary safety information. So this is a global problem, and Gambia is no exception to it.
Thank you.
Buyer beware.
So viewers, we'll be right back after the break. Then after the break, we'll engage the Q Group Foundation, Setal Suñu Réew. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
This is QTV This Morning. I am Ibrahim Balde, and the co-host of this program is Mr. Momodou Mboj. Now let's move on to the last segment of this program, Q Group Foundation, Setal Suñu Réew. We have Suleiman Conte, radio manager Q Radio, and Awa Gazama. It's good to have you people here. Di leen dalal ci programme bi pour waxtaane topic bu am solo setal suñu réew. Suleiman, as yow yaa nekk bokk nga ci ñoo xam ne ñoo nekk di initiate lii ba pare di ko pousse gis ne mu dox, ñu ngi laa dalal yow ak Awa.
Thank you Balde, kontaan nañ trop pour ñëwaat fii nii léegi mu ngi mel léegi wi di setal suñu réew programme ñun nekkatuñ gan fii nii, so it's another milestone. Demoon nañ commencé woon nañ ko ndanka def nañ pilot si launch nañ, and nu ngi target project si one by one, because we've done the pilot at the turntable, and then ñu ñëw def initiative official opening bi at the turntable ak yooyu noonu ñu songa Coastal Road bi, then léegi ñu dugga ci programme bi nga xam ne moom moo tudd ambassadeur setal suñu réew ambassadeur programme bi. Yàlla def ñu am applicants from all over the country, waaye nag ñu tànn ci some few for the start. Bokk na ci Bakary Sambuya and Mariama Kunda Tanje, and of course Bundung Bitik Yasin ñëwee ko Serekunda ak yooyu noonu. So yàlla def ne the first initiative for the ambassadorship programme ñu dem def ko Bakary Sambuya, kii moo jiite woon ñi ko apply mooy Awa, mu apply yàlla def mu tombé am criteria bokk ci criteria c'est que you know.
So rek explain the ambassador program.
Thank you. Thank you.
into
Ambassador program bi mooy xam nga setal sunu réew moom firil na boppam mooy setal sunu réew we all know ne dañ war a setal sunu dëkkuwaay sunu béréb bi war a set. So ambassador program bi mooy ne da nga apply dañ ko open nit ñi dañoo jongante ci kan a gën a setal bérébam. So jongante googu noonu li ngay def mooy da nga apply ne da ngaa dem ci béréb bi nga xam ne yéen foofu ngeen bugg a setal te foofu itteel na leen trop ci seen gox bi nga naan ne man la for exemple Mamadou Bari naka Balde suñu gox bi jógee ko fii ba Kerewaan ba Lameng daf dee salte trop so béréb bi nii la mel. ñun dañ bugg a bokk ci ambassadeur si programme bi bu ko defee ñun dinañ féetoo fii saa yum tilimee rek ñun dinañ ko bale saa yum tilimee rek dinañ ko bale so dañ interested pour bokk ci si ambassadorship bi so loolu dañoo jongante ñoomi neen ci ñi select at the end of the year dinañ am benn sign of appreciation bi nga xam ne dinañ ko def jox di participants yi nga xam ne participate nañ ci setal programme bi so lii moo ci nekk.
so ñu ngi jongante. kan la goxam gën a set.
thank you so léegi ñoom bu ñoo def loolu ñun luñ am pour def mooy ne ñuy doxantu time to time si gox yi seet. yaa ngi understand si anam buñ fekkee sa gox ñu vidéo ko keep suñu evidence ñu dem si place yi keneen vidéo ko keep suñu evidence ba at the end of the year den ñu ñëw tinka ñu seet bundung de moom this month setoon na waaye de following month nii den ñu tànn ci kii moo gën a setle and then moom moom mooy nekk force kii moo ci toppa kele toppa ci so suñ defee face boobu noonu at the end of the day dinañ empower ñooñu in a way that ne dinañ leen jox loo xam ne dinañ ko am ci ay jumtuwaay yoo xam ne because this time almost jumtuwaay yi nga xam ne yëpp la ñu li nekk di jëfandikoo ñun ñoo ko provide like setal suñu réew ñoo ko provide muy pousse yeeg rato yeeg moto yeeg everything ak yooyu noonu bon da ngaa gis ne buñ demee at the end of the jongante bi buñ demee ba di joxe award bi yow nañ la jox loo xam ne jumtuwaay yooyu noonu yaa ko moom den su ko defee léegi yow dooleel nañ la then you will be you will focus on completing then ñu am another set of people or batch of people ñoo xam ne dinañ ñëw bokkaat ci programme.
That's it awa bala ngaa ñëw nii. so da nga gis ne loolu sax mun naa set in motion.
thank you.
change of attitude.
right.
isn't it.
right.
nga xam ne niituma pour kenn jox ma prize. for me pour ma keep my community clean. I don't need the prize.
waruñ maa nax sax cleanliness exactly
own prize our own reward la. the cleanliness is its own reward. so awa how do you comment so yow da nga win ci ambassador programme bi so how lu tax nga bokk ci seen groupe.
Thank you very much for having me. maa ngi tudd Awa Gassama, founder and CEO of Zero Waste Zone. ñun we focus on recycling and waste management so bu ñu gisee seetal suñu réew initiative bi dañ kontaanoon torop so luñ njëkkaa gis mooy dañ gis seen post on Facebook man ma njëkkaa comment laajte comme soo buggee bokk si lii naka ngay def unfortunately aw ma woon respond at that instant but then a few days later ma gis ne gaa ngi open applications for to be an ambassador of setal suñu réew so ma ne suma gaay ne kon this is an opportunity let's apply ñu apply unfortunately gaay reach out ñoom Mr. Sol reach out ñu ne you have been selected as an ambassador on the setal suñu réew initiative programme so ñun ñu ngi focus si schools si right now suñ initiative bi mu ngi nekk Bakary Sambuya Basic Cycle School weekend bi passé nii foofu lañ nekkoon on a massive cleaning exercise ñoom Sol ñu ngi fa woon isi nañ bagage yi moto yi and everything ñun tamit suñ nit ñi génn nañ school bi génn nañ all the volunteers were there so clean nañ foofu noonu bem set and everybody was happy so this is indeed a great opportunity pour ñu mun a explore ñun suñ area of waste management because gis nañ ne waste management is a huge problem in the Gambia da ngay gis ku naan coffee rek sànni kaasam nga gis ku jënd ice cream wala popcorn sànni mbuusam so loolu yëpp ay problème la yoo xam ne ñu ngi koo jànkuwanteel te ñun loolu lañ bëgg a xeex at Zero Waste Zone so suñ amee opportunity bu mel nii from Q Group Foundation ñun tamit dañoo jël suñ taxawaay jàppale leen ñu setal suñu réew.
So mu ngi mel ni li okatu bu daje xaw ma gestu la. You people were cleaning. ba pare ñi ñoo dooleel la. Lan moo nekkoon seen biggest problem zero waste zone as far as cleaning is concerned?
Well, suñ biggest problem mooy equipment, materials you need for clean, and also attitudes, people's attitudes towards waste disposal. Nit ñi dangay gis ne ku nekk dafay bale néegam sànni fu mu ko neexee, you know, so ñun pour ñu war a mun a génn si gox yi di collect mbalit bi loolu is a huge problem because ñun tamit amuñ jumtuwaay yi waaye comme Q group ñu ñëwee nii di ñu support di indi jumtuwaay yooyu noonu ñun tamit dañoo gën a taxaw pour jàppalante ak gaay nga gis ne dinañ mun a setal suñ palaas yi.
So I wonder, I'm Suleiman, naka response be with this ambassador program? Are you getting lots of people being interested?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, you know, a lot of people, ñu bëri ngi apply. So, dafa am criteria su fa nekk, so team bi dina lay toog mu seet criteria yu noonu ñu ko gën a matale ak yu noonu. So bokk na ci ñoom awa, you know, close to 50 people ñëwoon nañ génn si woon nañ. So the amount of people also matters a lot. You know, ñaata nit nga war a mun a indi because sooy def set setal bu xam ne dafa am doole you need a lot of people to come out to be able to do it. And then so am nañ response yu bëri sax. In fact, people are applying all the way in Jara Soma and beyond, but then unfortunately because pilot project la, you know, we cannot go very far for now. Why we wish someday we'll go all countrywide to do this thing. Why fi mu nekk nii yaakaar naa ne am nañ enough. ñu ngi deal with the first batch and then obviously am na beneen second batch boo xam ne already mu ngi taxaw di xaar. Once we done with this first batch ñu ngi dugg ci second phase beeg yi noonu. So response bi is good. Nit ñi ba tey mun nañu apply ci 556 5555 556 5555 if you want to be part of it, you know. And Mbodj ma yokka ci lii dañoo sant di gërëm li nga xam ne mooy national environment because ñoom it, you know, they are fully supporting this idea. And then di gën a ñaax local governments yi ñoom ñu ngi ñoo dimbale parce que comme ñoom ñoo dee indi trucks yeeg yi noonu pour bu mbalit beeg yi noonu, which is a very good gesture. waaye nag da nga gis ne ñu gën a yokk rek nañu gaay jàppale because lu xew mooy soo xoolee West Coast region comme ñii fu ñu jógee ko West Coast region, you know, commencé ko Kallaaji ñëw ba Sénégambia for example, man, you know, amuñ enough capacity pour mun a ne dañoo setal place yi nii yëpp. yaa ngi understand waaye askan bi seen boppa ñoom ñoo war a ñëw taxaw mun a gis ne ñun dinañ dimbale local government bi pour mun a setal suñu béréb bi. waaye nag local government bi tamit bu nit ñi demee ba sas seen boppa pour setal béréb bi kii noonu ñoom nag dooleel bi nga xam ne war nañ leen koo dooleel loolu mooy nit ñi dañoo collecte waste bi yow nag loo ci am rek ñëw buub ko yóbbu ko. I think loolu dañ la naa ñaax ñu gën cee ñu ngi ci taxaw waaye ñu gën cee taxaw bu mu soxee. because mu ngi mel ni que ñoom la ñoo dimbale at some point. well anyway réew mi la ñoo dimbale sax at some point ñun ñëpp ci benn affaire bi lañ nekka. but da ngaa gis ne xëj na ñun mun nañoo génnee 60 people pour clean environment waaye amuñ boobu kattan pour hire ay trucks pour ñoo buub ko. you know, so ñun buñ indee manpower bi pour clean setal béréb bi ñoom am nañ capacity bi pour ñoom ñu buub ko dem tuuri ji ko. so lii moo ci nekk Mr. Mbodj but the response is great. People are responding and then ñu ngay gis effect bi because suñu lifin bi fu ñu ko defoon Bakary Sambuya. I mean, from the school campus, going close to the football field, and then going towards the whole highway, you know, it's just clean.
Well, I think the initiative mu ngi pay at least an effect bu nekkee tuuti la sax. waaye tey bu ma doon ñëw liggéey maa ngi gis box lifin yu nekk Westfield man su ma aagee foofu su ma gisee box yi setal suñu réew. dama seet environment bi whether people are adhering to throwing in the bin waaye foofu yëpp mu ngi set. So bins yaa ngi am lifin so ma feel okay now people know this thing is happening. Why Suleiman, let's talk about continuity. Pour ëllëg xam nga normally dañ dee start dara waaye duñ ci dee continuer duñ ci dee sawar after mën nañoo génn léegi ñu def lu bëri di nga gis few months yu ñëw rek ñu relaxaat. So how are you people making sure we catch up?
Thank you. So li xew mooy Balde boo xoolee li initiative bi nii fi mu jógee ko fi mu faaxee ko war ngaa mun a xam ne lii du affaire yi caaxaan because yow xam nga ne Q group mënuñoo enu loo xam ne mënuñ koo yóbbu te Q group duñ songa rek ñu
waaw loolu dëgg la
so the root is from the Q group foundation and obviously dañoo sant gërëm ki nga xam ne mooy sunu sunu boss di Nene because moom moo nekk on top of everything and then awa gis naa the collaboration nekkut sax mu ngi lead by example moom ci boppam she came all the way to Bakary Sambuya and was on the ground from A to Z yaa ngi understand te ñun lii dafa continuer comme nu ma ko waxee awa wax naa ko ma ne ko saa yow lañ toogee rek ngeen gis ne it's necessary pour clean environment bi it's just a matter of call Souleymane ñun suñ fii daal bugga na ñëw next week mu gën a ñëw nii ma ne ko ñun dinañ drive rek ñëw yaa ngi understand so until when they are able to do it on their own, we'll give them the support that they need.
Okay. Absolutely. I'm quick one.
Yeah.
Awa, especially you. You work at schools. Nick, isn't it? Very tilim, you clean is one thing. Why tell me mama habit bo xam ne duma sani. That's the other part. Xam naa da ngeen di deal schools engage schools at that level. And nga catch them early. Maybe volunteer at that age. Habits dina change as ñu ngee mag.
Waaw Mr. Mbodj si Saturday bi sax ñun ñu ngi doon discuss ak teachers yi about modalities comme si school bi naka lañ mun a make sure ne school bi dafa set all the time maa ngi doon suggest some of the issues that we need to address like xale bu saani mbuus si suuf forut ko mu dem yoonam lan lañ ko war a def dañ ko punish wala dañ ko yóbbu si kamay mu raxas wala dañ ko jox bale mu dem clean da nga gis ne ëllëg su waree def loolu noonu dafa xalaat man démba bu ma saanee lii nii lii lañ ma def understand nga so mane gaay ne tamit teachers itam dañ koo def so bu dee teacher la moom moo saani just little like that lan lañ ko war a def maybe ñu fine ko teacher bi dafa war a fay $50 or $100 so imagine every time suma saanee dara dañoo génnee $50 si suma salary da nga xalaataat next time soo waree saani loolu noonu so attitudinal change is what is important.
xam nga lu ñu sooral in Gambia te suñ génnee ñu dem si dëkki nit ñi we behave very well. I can remember bu ma nekkee Istanbul dama naan ndox butéel Souleymane ma naan butéel bi ma téye butéel bi ba ma gis dustbin saani ko fa.
bi doon Gambia ko doon gota bi ak
si palanteeri moto bi rek laa ko saani ma dem suma yoon. So when we travel ñu behave but in our own country we behave anyhow.
No, I mentioned something very important.
Right.
Many individuals their behavior depends on the environment. So for jar nga create the environment, pour nga expect the individuals na behave ni or behave it's not going to happen. The environment more they want. For instance, when we were younger, not somebody else of la door. Why ñu la yar pour nga ne dama ashamed for my son in that you see to delve back to the individual you are ashamed whether need gis na la or gisut la you are ashamed to do it for a fundamental change neka not necessarily being punished even though maybe in the beginning you might need it pour hangara muri orient why in the end man may wara rus pour def yene yi
exactly
for a cultural change bi really
so it goes to a challenge. It goes to a level bo xamne dang ko living because man legi before the sunu rew initiative bi ni like comme balde lu wax rek lekka rek sani holiti limon naka sorans nga lekka gerte sani and all that but honestly legi some madam but drop something and then ma feel guilty pick out really so it's like it's a way of getting used to it more like the catch them young concept is very good because xalé suñu mag di am concept bobu nonu ne de bi because so xolé environment bi du dara yep kayit la Nescafe lifin mbuus and everything so yooyu yëpp maa jënd sukur sooti sukur bi saani mbuus bi jënd mbuuroog ñebe lifin kayit bi saani ko so suñ saani wutee bërëb bi du tilim at some point.
That's exactly it. ba pare nit nga soo amee xale yi neen sax kenn saani keneen xool ko ni ko noo waruloo saani ñoom mi neen di critique each other that would be ideal waaye fu mu nekk as things sax da ngaa saani waaye kenn du gis ne li nga def dafa wrong because dañ ko normalize so normal so we don't even see it so pour gis ko njëkka I think that's the challenge really. Gis ne lii dafa wrong. As everybody ñun ñëpp ñuy police. ku nekk di ko enforce.
So for now ambassador yi loo leen nekk di defal gaay da ngeen jox ngeen gaay jumtuwaay.
No, dañ dee dem ak jumtuwaay yi.
Okay.
We have wheelbarrows, am nañ ay push-push, am ay jassy and all the necessary things that we needed to do the cleaning exercise. So li xew mooy for instance xam nga dem nañ Bakary Sambuya. The next project is gonna be at Bundung Bitik Yasin commencé ko fa ñëw ba Serekunda nawet beeg you see how that environment looks like. So loolu moo nekk target bi soobee yàlla week coming next foofu la ñu dem songa ji. So lu ñu dee def mooy we go with our truck dañ dee dem ak suñ truck bi and have all the necessary so lu ñu dee need yow ambassador bi for now lu ñu need mooy yow ñëwal ak sa nit ñi rek ñu ñëw collaborate waxtaan ak everything rek and that's it then ñu wàccee bagage yëpp ci truck bi then su ko defee ku nekk am li ngay lifin but sometimes li dee Mr. Mbodj lan lañ ñëw realize sax picking is even quicker than sweeping at some point, so dañoo dox rek for mu fees so it's so good buñ demee bañ gis ne léegi daanaka ñu ngay jeexal si ten truck bi bu ñëwee rek luñ lifin rek ñu buub rek so response bi is good comme like I said léegi nii nekkuñ di jox benn ambassadeur jumtuwaay waaye ñu ngi laa support ak jumtuwaay te dinañ indaale ndox yoo xam ne while we working we can all drink and have energy to do the job waaye comme nu ma la ko waxee fu moo jeexee then we have 4 second, third prizes, or we have prizes for participants per se. And at the end of the day, then su ko defee foofu is fixed ne every ambassador will dina am jumtuwaay boo xam ne yaa ko.
So ambassador yi ñaata ngeen am intention pour select ñaata ambassador.
In the meantime 4 la. Okay. Si doorin bi. waaye it's 4 second, third at some point. While let's say everyone that took part is a winner, and then obviously even 4th person they will have something to to help him.
Why this ambassador should be a community leader, a person boo xam ne dafa am ay nit yoo xam ne because when you select an individual nga ne yaay ambassador bi probably all those things that are going to be used for the work. The individual might try to cling those things to him or herself. So dafa war a am a group. So war a nekk a group.
Exactly. moo tax ma ne la suñ meeting am na criteria yu fa nekk am na kii zero waste. They have a
they have a foundation already.
Exactly. So the benefit goes to the foundation. So it's good na ñi nga xam ne ñëpp ñi apply yëpp they are just like ñii nuñ mel.
Okay.
xam nga so mu ngi mel ni ki there are group of people in this country.
So you apply as a group.
Thank you.
As a group.
Exactly.
Always apply as a group.
That's what I am
so
driving.
The benefit goes to the group instead.
Okay.
That would because as an individual, comme niñ ko waxee, as an individual, you cannot be. Today you want to take the credit on your own. Doo mun a dajale 50 people at any time.
At all, yeah.
But as an association or a group like this, it's just about announcing in your WhatsApp group ne best nangam lila and the group will always come out at some point. So if an individual wants to pretend to be part of it, there are chances that dina feel at some point because 50 people doing la uyusi when they expecting nothing at some point.
Exactly. So lan mooy yeen seen zero waste initiative bi lan mooy seen next step as an organization?
Wow, especially on the Setal Suñu Réew initiative bi ñun dañ jël initiative bi take ownership of the initiative because loolu mooy yóbbu lii kanam. At some point ñi mun nañoo stop seen support to zero waste zone waaye ñun dañ jël initiative bi moomale ko suñ boppa da ngay gis ne ñoom suñ stopé ñun dinañ mun a continuer ak suñ community to always clean the community. At this stage ñu ngi si school bi kese waaye suñ demee ba si kanam dañoo dugga si biir community bi because gis nañ ne community bi tamit dafa tilim nekkul ne school bi rek a tilim so pour make sure ñu clean community bi dañ am pour dugga jël ownership gis ne community bi yéen tamit si ngeen bokka ñun ñëpp a dee tilimal fii so ñun ñëpp a ko war a clean so ñu ngi plan on monthly cleaning exercises si suñ community bi da nga gis ne every month dinañ select one weekend ñu clean area si especially school boo xam ne foofu la Q Group Foundation with the Setal Suñu Réew initiative bi select pour ñun ñu focus foofu noonu waaye tamit dañ faa boole suñ community nga gis ne area bi yëpp dafa set because school bi rek su setee yeneen place yi setuñ da ngaa gis ne ngelaw su ñëwee sax dafa naaw dellu si biir school bi waaye suñ fa boolee gox bi yëpp da ngaa gis ne loolu is something that is important.
Thank you Suleiman. Finally lan nga am pour wax ñoo xam ne they are part of the suñu réew setal suñu réew and yeneen community yoo leen am intention pour dem visit waaw.
So first of all dinaa gërëm ñi seen we are very ñun kontaan nañ trop with ñi suñ first project bi with them right yes coordination bi was well ñëpp ñëw nañ in time ñu part into 3 groups ñi la jël fële and then in fact we were thinking that by 1 o'clock dañoo pare but foog naa I bought it 11 before ñu ne 12 rek pare nañ because of the structure and the number of people that comes out so it's a good one on their side te ñu ngi advocate all the participants or all the ambassadors also ñoom it ñu jël the same jéego bu ñu waxee ne 8 a.m. ñu make sure ne 8 a.m. we are on the ground before ñu ne 9 o'clock rek commencé nañ liggéey bi balaa naaj bi di tànga rek fekk sori nañ wala execute nañ so lii mbir la boo xam ne jeexut fii te du fi am soobee yàlla ak yonente bi it's an ongoing thing and then we will go up to the extent that ne askan bi sax dinañ ko gis because it already manifested in at the turntable bi li mu nekkee jamono gi nii léegi ne gis ngeen Watson Gambia sax awoodoon nañ jigéen yooyu noonu koppar ak saaku maalo pour Ramadan beeg yooyu noonu because jigéen yooyu noonu they are ñun ñoo initiate ak everything waaye ñoom ñoo responsible pour clean the environment at some point so léegi nag ku dem si turntable bi rek nga xam ne there is a lot of changes compared to before at some point so Bakary Sambuya tamit si street school bi demee ñëw bi si highway bi definitely képp koo xam ne jaar nga fa ñu bëree fa jaar jërëjëf léegi li ngeen naa def ni school and so I know ne dina manifest so at some point if we doing it di ko def at some point réew mi sax si boppam dinañ war a gis ne waa dëgga initiative bi manifest
jërëjëf thank you
it's a good one.
Thank you one thing lañ war a understand as a nation Gambia nu meloon 10 years back melatut noonu development bi mu ngee ñëw infrastructure baa ngee ñëw imagine léegi new building buñ inaugurate fan yi nga dem nga fekk boor foofu yëpp mu ngi am ay mbuus
exactly
so these are things turntable bi xoolal nu mel léegi it's very busy so these are things that should be taken care of te loolu ñun yëpp suñu responsibility la so jërëjëf thank you Suleiman thank you Awa Gassama for coming on the program and thank you Mr. Mbodj.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Viewers, this is all we have for you today. And join us tomorrow again for another edition of QTV This Morning. Until then, enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye-bye.